Welcome to Light Muse. We are your hosts, Flannery Underwood
and Jessica Cabesi.
And today we're talking with Kianna Naomi. She's an influencer and YouTuber from Los Angeles. Kianna, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Today I know we're going to talk a lot about your experience with brand trips and certain things that you've encountered. So I think like a good starting question would be like, for someone who's never been on a brand trip before, can you just like describe what a brand trip is and what a typical experience is like?
So a brand trip is basically, it's a business transaction. So this company, whether the company be in makeup or fashion or sports, they'll take talent. And when I say talent, I just mean entertainers. So that would be influencers, athletes, models, actors. It just depends on whoever, whatever they're trying to push. But they take you to usually a very, very nice place, and you kind of just have a good time. Sometimes there's different activities that they'll set up, but you have a good time, and they use your likeness to push whatever product they're trying to sell. So even though you're just having fun, it still has that business aspect to it.
So a typical good experience for you would, like, describe that to me, like a really good brand trip. What happens?
I went on a really, really nice trip to Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee, with Sephora Collection. And we get there and we have our own rooms. It's beautiful. It's a resort. It's not your typical resort. It's actually a wellness resort where the focus is just wellness and mental health and, recentering you. So it wasn't superficial at all. Like, we weren't necessarily there to take, it wasn't like, hey, look at me, I'm in this super nice place that you can't be in. It didn't have that energy at all. And we just did photo shoots. They set up movie nights. They showed us all their new products. They showed us how to use their new products. The girls are always super nice on those trips. They work on including everybody. They have one of the things that they set up was aerial yoga. So, ooh, and you didn't have to do anything. You could, if you wanted to show up, you could. And they recorded everything. They made their own content, and then we made our own content. And yeah.
Were you in the sky doing yoga?
I was. I was at aerial yoga for sure. There's no way I was gonna miss that.
Oh my God! I mean, God bless you. I don't know.
No, you would have liked it. You would have liked it. It's a lot more fun than you think it is.
Just, I would pay good money to see you do some aerial yoga.
I don't think any company wants that liability. They have like an ambulance staff like next to me. They're like, she's dropping soon. I got money. I got $5 on that girl. She's dropping. No, it's good. You're setting the stage for us. So, those who don't know what brand trips are, who don't know what a typical one sounds like or really looks like, now they kind of have an idea. And the reason why we asked this is because last year, and actually last year is when I found you and I met you. We did a photo shoot together. I don't know if people are really aware, but you and some other girls had an experience, and I'm going to have you, talk to us about that. There was a trip in Fiji with a brand that you were invited to, and I saw your video about this trip, and I was listening to you talk, and how you were basically saying like no one wanted to photograph you, and like it literally broke my heart. I'm like, she's such, like, the cutest girl. Like, who wouldn't want to photograph her? Oh my God. And I remember, I don't know if you saw it, but I left you a comment and I'm like, I would love to photograph you. Please contact me. Like, I'm gonna reach out to you. And that's when I reached out to you. I DM'd you. I sent you the message on the YouTube. I wrote the comment on YouTube, and that's how I got to know you. And we ended up shooting together in LA. And so that situation happened last year. So, I mean, talk us through it. How was that personal experience for you in Fiji? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, Fiji actually happened in, I believe, August 2018. So that's when the trip took place, and I didn't make a video speaking about my experience until almost a year later. And I'm actually glad I took a year just to kind of, or about a year, just to kind of like think about everything that happened, because in the moment, it it was definitely uncomfortable, and I wanted to go home, but I didn't see how bad it really was in theory. And especially like you tend to downplay things when they're happening. You're like, "Oh, but it's because of this." But then when I met up with you and I told you what happened, you were like, "Oh my god, that's not okay." And even your friend Brandon was like, that's not okay. Like that's really messed up." And I was just like, "Oh, is it?" Like, I mean, you know?
So me and Flannery are photographers. People who are not photographers maybe wouldn't know what the protocol is. So like you said, maybe you downplayed the fact that something was happening to you, but again, maybe you just didn't really think too much of it. But when I heard this story as a photographer, I knew that this was not okay. We do need to talk about it. For those who don't know the situation, can you give us a little summary for those who have no idea what we're talking about right now?
They took, I want to say, around 20 girls to Fiji. And a lot of people wanted to go on this trip. A lot of people were told, no, you don't have enough followers on our app. You know, you have to reach a certain amount. Well, we get to the island and, it's all great. And there's just little things kind of going wrong in terms of the actual trip. This has nothing to do with the photographers. The trip itself, like the food was kind of giving low-key food poisoning. The water was recycled, so I would drink it and kind of like feel sick. The resort wasn't finished. There were construction workers everywhere. I remember they dropped us off on an island, and we couldn't get like the waves were too crazy, so the boat couldn't dock again. So they would have to carry us. These men would have to carry us through the water to get on a little boat to get on the big boat, like literally like manhandling us, and like just little things just going wrong. Well, on top of that, the atmosphere of this trip was like high school. And that's just what happens when you invite, 16-year-olds to go to Fiji. Like that's just the reality of it. And so in that, we were invited, even though this isn't, said, we're basically there to get pictures, to get videos and pictures and be like, hey, this brand brought us to this island. Like, we love this, brand. Like, thank you so much for bringing us, because you have to be grateful for that experience. Like, you're getting to go to an island for free. And so there were a lot of photo shoots going on, and before we were under the impression that, okay, we're gonna get our photo taken by photographers. But that did not really happen, and only the girls who were at the top of they had the biggest social media following. But not only that, they were just more popular. Like in terms of like socially, they were just, this clique was they were the only people getting pictures, and they all look a certain way. They're all size 0. And so if you don't fit into that category, you're not going to get photographed. And so it was just this throughout the trip. It was just this ongoing, like, a lot of girls were just really uncomfortable because there's 20 girls, but the photographers only care about 6 of them, because only 6 are going to push the photographers' followings up. So, it was just not the best setup for a brand trip.
And for those listening, because, I think it's important to note that Kiana is a young Black female. And this is a sensitive subject, but, as a minority also, I think it's still important to talk about it, especially as photographers. And, something as simple as photography, you know, me and Flannery were talking earlier, it's still, you know, a social activity. You know, you're talking to people, you're interacting with people, you're taking their photo. And I want to read to you, when I was watching your video, you said no one is taking pictures of you on a trip that's for pictures, so you're going to feel very uncomfortable. Like, can you talk to us about what led up to this? Because there was a certain situation which you guys were placed in. They clumped you guys up in a group and just took literally like a couple like bursts of photos and just called it a day.
So I guess the brand started to see that only certain girls were being photographed, and we were kind of hinting that we were uncomfortable throughout the trip. And so they were like, okay, cool, we're gonna set up just a mini photo shoot, just something on the beach, meet up at this house, and you guys are gonna get your photo taken. And it's already a little uncomfortable because it's forced.
Oh, they didn't like, the photographer wasn't like, hey, I want to photograph you guys. So the brand set it up after you guys made the comments to them.
Yeah, the photographers, honestly, I did not even speak to them throughout the whole trip. Like, it was kind of just, you didn't feel, the environment was not inviting whenever the photographers around. They had a photo shoot. It was kind of in the middle of the trip, and the photographers would be taking pictures of the other girls, and they would be in groups, and everyone else would just kind of be like standing around, like just watching these group photos being taken. It was kind of just like, okay, well, I'm not gonna ask them to take my picture because that would be kind of, you know, weird, puts me in an uncomfortable situation. And you don't want to beg someone to take your photo, you know, like, that's just not something I wanted to do. And so finally, if the brand steps in at that photo shoot and they're like, hey, why don't you photograph Kiana? Like, go over there and photograph Kiana. When we are finally photographed, it's like, okay, just click. They're just clicking the camera. They're not giving you any direction. They don't want to be taking pictures of you. So it's just a situation where you don't really want to be in it. So it's like, okay, you know what? Never mind. Like, don't take my photo, kind of thing. But afterwards, after that initial photo shoot, they were like, okay, not all the girls are being photographed, so we're gonna set up another one, and this one's like mini, you know, the brand's not there, just the photographers. And they set us up in a line, just a random line.
It was like a group picture at like a wedding or something. Like, get your family together, just stand wherever.
Just like, okay, everyone just kind of get together and
clump together.
We're just all in a straight line. It was bad. And so they take a few shots and then they're like, okay, we're gonna go down the line, take a couple more. And the photographer just kind of goes down the line and is snapping pictures. And we're just like, okay. Like, it's just weird, and like, no one's comfortable. Everyone's just kind of like, oh, so this is the group that is not really popular among everybody. And then they take some, they put us in pairs, and obviously my pair is the only other Black girl on the trip. And so even though we're two completely different heights, I think she's like 5'1", 5'2", and I'm like 5'7", so it was just kind of weird, and I didn't really know how to, like, they didn't pose us, so we had to figure it out for ourselves. And yeah, never got those pictures from one of the photographers. Yeah, no. One of the photographers didn't even, I doubt they edited the pictures, but the other photographer did send some of them over, but to the brand, not to us. So I see one of the pictures on the brand's Instagram, and I'm like,
oh, that's the picture.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, there it is. Oh, well, I didn't get that.
At least somebody got it.
Right, and they post that at the end of the trip. And so this is just a build up, and I'm pissed. So I go to the brand, I'm like, you guys have not given me a single, like, I haven't received a single picture from any photographer, and all these other girls are, like, I saw one of the girls scroll through the camera roll, at least 400 pictures, just of themselves and of their
Professional
friends.
pictures.
Professional pictures. And I'm just like, I mean,
Oh, she got it sent to her phone. She had it all ready.
yeah, she
and
had it edited,
retouched.
sent to her phone. Like,
Wow.
they were priority. So when I see my picture on their Instagram, I'm like, you guys aren't even giving us any photos. Why are you posting on your Instagram like, we're having a great time in Fiji? Not only that, but they post a picture of me and the photo of me and the girl, and I just thought that was interesting because it was almost like, oh, there's two black girls on the trip too. It was kind of just like throwing that in there, if that makes any sense.
Like, oh, we're diverse. Here you go.
Exactly. But the thing about the difference between feeling like a token and feeling like, okay, they're an inclusive brand, is just treat us like everyone else. Like, we were clearly not at the top of your priority list, so we were kind of just brought in as like, that extra flash of color.
I'm going to jump in because I have a lot of questions for you and a lot of comments as well. So I think it's interesting because underlying of all the circumstances and all the things that happened to you, there is this underlying tension of race, right? And you mentioned also, that those girls had some of the bigger followings. And do you feel like it was intentional discrimination based on how many followers those girls had? Or do you feel like it was more of an unintentional or underlying discrimination based on race?
I think it was such a combination of things, and that's why it's hard to be like, oh, it's because I'm black. Because as a woman of color, you jump to that conclusion because that's how you've been programmed since you were a little kid. Like in kindergarten, when no one wants to play with you, you're like, oh, well, I'm the only black girl, so it's probably because I'm black. And so it was just that kind of thing. But then one of the photographers, allegedly, because I didn't hear it from the photographer, I heard it from someone who overheard the photographer, goes, oh, let's make sure to record the black girls dancing so we can put it in the video. So it's like, okay, so even if I'm not thinking that I'm like the black girl, the photographer sees me as like the black girl,
And your opinion on the line between brands genuinely being inclusive or, like you said, just inviting you because you're this token person of color, can you sense that with brands? From my personal experience, I worked very closely with Ipsy for a long time, and through that I met someone who wore a hijab, and we had long conversations about how she loved working with Ipsy because she felt like she was just another girl, and it wasn't because Ipsy was trying to bring her in for one campaign because she was the hijab girl, and that was that, and then they never hit her up again. And what's your experience been like that, and how can you, as an influencer, someone on the other side opposing to brands, kind of like suss it out, like when a brand reaches out, or maybe you've heard things, like how do you kind of like navigate that?
It can be hard to tell just because you usually don't want to jump to that conclusion. You want to, and also you want to represent for girls who look like you, because these trips were a big deal and all the most popular girls were going on these trips. And if all the girls going on these trips are white and skinny, then everyone else watching who's not white and skinny is going to be like, well, I mean, I'm never going to get to go on these trips. Like, this brand just isn't for me. And so if they invite me, I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, I can be that person. They can see me and be like, okay, you know what? Actually, I can work towards this. I can support this brand. But it was just kind of clear in the way we were treated. We were treated very differently, and there were just many other trips that hinted at this. For example, there was another trip that this brand did to Coachella, and if you're a woman of color, you get, you don't get the nice room, you get the other room. And this happened on multiple occasions, and it's like, it's not a coincidence at that point,
Kiana, if you were the photographer in that situation, how would you have handled things differently?
I just feel like as a photographer, I would want, it's hard to say, and a lot of the not backlash, but when I first said, okay, the photographers weren't taking pictures of me, everyone goes, well, it's not their job to take pictures of you. Like, they're there to have...
Well, it is. That's why they're there.
No, right. And that's the impression that I was under, but they were like, no, like, they came as like a +1 and it wasn't their job to take photos of you. Look, I don't know how much they're getting paid, but if I'm a photographer and this is the talent that I have to work with, I just want to make sure that everyone feels included. Even feels included. Even if they're not. You don't have to post me on your Instagram page. Like, to be honest, I don't want to be the only Black girl on your Instagram page. So, like, don't, But I would just make sure everyone feels comfortable and feels included and feels like they deserve to have their photo taken. But then again, like, I'm just not a photographer, so I just really don't know the standards. I'm like, is this how all photographers are? Like, do they just, and it's hard because if they were shooting for Vogue and like shooting Beyonce, I'd be like, you know what? Like, okay, you do your thing. But these were photographers that specifically shoot influencers. You can go to their Instagram pages and you just see influencers. And so it's like, if you're an influencer, you're like, okay, well, I'm just not good enough as an influencer for you to take pictures of me.
So me and Flannery are both photographers, and I've shot so many events. Flannery can say the same. We have a lot of experience between us. So when I first heard the story through the perspective of a photographer, if I was brought by the brand, to photograph this event or this trip, I would definitely be photographing everybody. I would never exclude somebody because of their followers. Like, you can ask Flannery, I don't care how many followers you have. I want to work with people who I want to work with everybody, So to me, it wasn't even a question of, like, is this okay? I knew it wasn't okay. But those who aren't in this field of photography, they may come up with excuses like, oh, but they want to shoot for their friends, or they want to do this. So, Flannery, in your opinion, looking at this through the lens of a photographer, is this okay, just as a photographer even?
No, it's not okay. And especially, I've been brought by clients to brand trips and done experiences like this. And I've also been hired by brands to take like more event photography and places where influencers are. And it's so crazy to me because I almost have the complete opposite, where I know at the end of the night or the next day or the next week, that client is going to come to me and they're going to ask, where were the photos of this girl? Where are the photos of this girl? And I need all of those girls to have great photos. And if there's just one photo of one girl, no matter who she is, they're going to be like, well, where are the other ones? Where are my options? And that's my mindset when I go into working for a client or on any trip. My coverage is the number one thing, because if you think you can snap 2 photos and kind of sit back and relax, especially on a brand trip where there are new experiences and you're doing things, it's so much about catching the moments, and you have to be continuously on. And not that you have to continuously shoot all the time. I think there is like a fine balance between that. But I think it's important that you get the coverage, like you're saying, and getting the coverage allows all the people, the models, the influencers there to feel like they're getting their share with you.
And this brings up another point, because as a photographer, you can exclude people without even knowing that you're excluding people, just by who you're choosing to shoot with and who you're choosing not to shoot with. And I think that's very powerful in a way, because for something like this, you guys are younger females, and and social media is so prevalent right now. So it is important to get photographed just like everybody else. You want to feel included.
There's also this other layer of the money aspect where, Kiana, like you said, these brand trips are work. You're there to have fun, and it's a great experience, and it's mutually beneficial for both parties in different ways, but you are both there to work. And it's funny because the brand trips I've been on, there have been other photographers that have been brought by clients or influencers, and I have no idea how much they're making. I have no idea what deals have been made prior to this trip. And I've had photographers come up to me and be like, are you getting paid to be here? Like, how much are you making for this trip? And I think this also goes back to the idea of we are still in this society where a lot of people don't talk about how much they make, and talking about money is kind of a closeted thing still. And you know, I go both ways. Like I'm pretty open with people, but you know, I think it's hard when you're first starting out as a photographer or an influencer or a model. How much do you charge? You know, what rate is fair for you? And I think that's something that we could all get a little bit better about. It's just the transparency. You don't have to say like, I make X amount of dollars per year, but just being a little more open with people who are kind of on or at your level or coming up to help them.
Well, they didn't even give her a chance. They didn't even include her. They didn't even photograph her. You're gorgeous. Yeah, I would photograph you like the entire time. Like, you're beautiful.
Kiana, when you posted your video or when you reached back out to that brand, did you get any sort of resolution? Was there any sort of apology or conversation that happened after that?
So after the trip in the airport, we sit down with okay, we need to talk to you guys, the brand. So we sit down with someone who works for the brand and we just tell them everything. We say, this is where you went wrong. It feels like high school. This is the image that you're pushing. So not only are we telling them our experience, we're literally giving them marketing advice. We're like, you're pushing this certain image of this certain girl, and you cannot preach diversity in your Instagram bio when you're treating anyone who's a little bit different like trash. And treatment was different, I will say, because if I said, oh, okay, like I'm feeling a little sick, oh, you can eat a mint. But I guarantee you, if one of those other girls said, oh, I'm feeling a little sick, the entire brand would be at their beck and call. And we've seen that in past trips, because I've been on a different trip with them. And so we told them everything they're doing wrong, and they were like, okay, yeah, we understand. And then a year later, they do the exact same thing at a different trip. And so I was like, okay, you know what? If they're not going to listen, I'm just going to make a video about it. Before I made the video, I get a text from one of the women, and they go, hey, can we schedule a call or something? I can't remember the exact wording, but it was something along the lines of, we'd love to talk to you. And I didn't reply because, first of all, it's been a year. I haven't received an apology. I barely received an apology back at the airport when I was telling you everything that happened. And after that text, I made the video and I never heard from them again. But I know a lot of people who work for the brand, and basically what they did for me and some of the other girls is just put them on a list of girls to never, just don't post these girls, don't reach out to these girls. And so I was on that list. So, and honestly, thankful I was on that list, because I did not want to be posted on their Instagram promoting this brand that treated me not so great. But yeah, no apology or anything.
Well, you know what? You should put them on a list, okay? If they want to put you on a list. Can we make a list right here?
Actually, I don't even think they're a brand anymore.
Really?
Someone DM'd me and said that, hey, did you hear that brand got shut down? And I was like, oh, no, I did not hear that. So I don't know if that's 100% correct.
Well, I think that speaks volumes about your experience and how maybe you weren't the only one, and that, how that brand handles situations like this was not good.
I mean, she wasn't even the only one. It's not a coincidence that she and all the other minorities felt this way.
Yeah.
It's not a coincidence. And it's not a coincidence that it wasn't just the living accommodations. It wasn't just the food. It wasn't, on top of all that, again, it was the photo shoot experience that the photographers had the responsibility to make sure everybody feels included. And that makes me, like, it really bothers me as a photographer that, you don't even know that how you're people can take this personally. Imagine everybody is doing something but you're excluded from it, no matter what it is. So again, you don't, as a photographer, how many photographers were there, by the way?
There were 3 photographers.
Oh, I thought there were 2. So there were 3.
There were 3, but one of the photographers, a lot of the people didn't even know she was a photographer. They thought she was also a model, like an influencer, but she was also a photographer.
Well, I wish that could be like, pretend like, people thinking I'm a model, but I'm like, psych, I'm the photographer.
She actually models now. She's really sweet. But my not so great experience was with the other 2 photographers, so that's why it just kind of sounds like I'm talking about 2.
And so were they employed by the brand, and like did the brand fly them out to do these photo shoots?
Yes. They pretty much came for free just like us. I do not know if they were paid or not, or if they had to reach like a quota, but yeah.
But they went on this trip with the intention of taking pictures of the trip and the people on the trip.
I would just like to add that every place we went, it did not matter where we were, pictures were being taken or videos were being taken. So on that island that we were stranded on, we get to the island, the second we get to the island, okay, pictures. Everyone get in the water, let's take some shots. And like when you hear that, you're like, okay, that means them, not me. And so you just kind of have to find another way to preoccupy yourself, and you just kind of sit around.
That's uncomfortable. I wouldn't even want to be where you're describing, to be honest with you. I don't even know how you dealt with that. Like, I feel terrible.
You feel bad because you're in Fiji is insane. Like, I've never seen a more beautiful sunset. I've never seen more blue water. And you're surrounded by all this beauty, but then you feel like crap and you just feel really bad. It's just overall kind of like, oh, I don't want to be here.
I think it's a good thing to note that everything you see on social media isn't always as it seems.
Yeah.
It's another great reminder that, no matter what photo is put out there, it's at some level a curation of your life. And so is art. It's a decision of what tools to use, of what creativity you're trying to express. And it's a good reminder to, not everything on social media is the perfect, beautiful life. And, I think all of us, the 3 of us, are very fortunate to have the jobs that we have and to be able to be creative every day. Are there any brands that you think are doing it right? Like being inclusive, getting all of the genders or ethnicities or races or any type of opinions in, and you think like, wow, like they're doing it the right way?
I would definitely say Sephora Collection. So Sephora Collection is Sephora's own makeup brand. And the initial trip that I went on with them, actually, all the girls were kind of similar. We were all 20, probably like 22 and under. We were all on the thinner side. There were minorities, but we all kind of had the same look. And so when they posted the picture, the top comment was, hey, everyone shops at Sephora. Like, not just young, skinny, pretty girls. This looks like, these look like Victoria's Secret angels. And so the next year, they were like, oh, we need to like take this into account. And everyone shops at Sephora. Now they have beauty boys, they have plus size girls, and they're just working on expanding it more and more and more. And they treat us all like, honestly, like royalty, like human beings, actually. Like, they make sure you're okay. And it sucks because you don't have to have a certain amount of followers to be treated like a human. So when people are like, well, or also you don't have to act a certain way to be treated like a human. A lot of people were telling me, well, you're just not, don't be mad because you don't fit in with the other girls. Okay, well, I still deserve to be treated nicely, You don't
have to sit and be friends with everybody. Like, you know what I mean? You can be cordial with everybody and still, maybe you don't have a lot of interest. It doesn't mean that you should be excluded from something,
And also, you don't want to try so hard to be friends with these girls.
Exactly.
I mean, that's just not in my character. And so if they're not interested in talking to me, then I'm not going to sit there and try to force some type of relationship.
I'm the same way, Kiana. Like if I don't feel that vibe that someone genuinely is like, oh hey, how's it going? Like does even say hi or acknowledge me? Like I'm not gonna go and try to like be friends with you. Like I'm just kind of like okay, like that's just how it is for me. So I totally understand. And then again, when you put into account, you know, all these little things like the differences in rooms and the food and the water and you know, the certain activities that you guys did versus what other people did. All of that kind of probably it was like a mountain of things that kind of just piled up. So I can't blame you for feeling a certain way and then confronting the owners of this brand. And then after seeing that maybe they didn't really care as much, I can't even imagine what you went through. And let me tell you something. I'm going to make this public record. If you want to come with me to Fiji, I would gladly come photograph you.
Go to Fiji and like make a better memory, because every time I think of Fiji, I'm like, oh.
I would love to. Let's go right once they open the borders. We can go. once this is over, it's an invitation to you, and you can come with me. Flannery obviously doesn't even need an invitation. You guys both don't even need invitations. You guys can both go.
Kiana, the last thing I'm going to throw in here too is I think the Sephora collection example is a really great testament to brands who maybe didn't do it right the first time, but you can always learn and grow and do it better the next time. So just look around and see where you want to get to and always improve. And if you're kind of stuck in the same place, like it's not a good situation. But I think that's a great proof that you can definitely improve on that as a brand. And same as an influencer, to find the people that you connect with and don't feel bad or obligated to like be friends with every single person on these brand trips.
And never compromise your character to fit in or get photographed, or just do you.
Be you.
You know, I really resonate with that because as a photographer, you feel this pressure to want to photograph people with a lot of followers, to get a lot of exposure. Let me tell you guys, I never fell into this trap because I always said to myself, I want to photograph people who I connect with, who I want to have in my book, who look interesting. And it was never about the followers to me. So I hope that a lot of photographers don't like share this same intentions that maybe some other photographers, maybe on that trip it was just about followers. Did you feel like it was just like, hey, because they have followers, that I'm being treated a certain way because I don't have enough followers?
Well, I would say that was the case, but my roommate had more subscribers than the popular girls, if you will. She had like 2 million subscribers, 400,000 followers on Instagram. So it wasn't necessarily just the followers. You had to have followers and then some. You had to have that extra, look, that extra, social. Like you have to act a certain way to fit in with these girls. It's high school. It's basically like high school.
You gotta have like a 5-page resume.
Right. So if you don't fit the criteria, then you're just, not a priority on the trip.
You think the photographers and stuff had a fun experience? It doesn't even sound like they had fun. Like, I don't know.
I don't know. Honestly, I think it's so interesting because every time, like when I first shot with you, literally every single photographer friend that I've ever had, they're like, oh my God, Jessica, like you shot with Jessica? Like, I can't believe it. She's my favorite. I love her work so much. Like all the photographers that I know. And then the photographers on the trip, like, they're not necessarily popular because of their photography. They're popular because of who they're shooting.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
And there's a huge difference.
I mean, wow. I think you just said what a lot of people are thinking. And to me, I want to be known for my work. I want to have those connections with the models. I want to be friends with people. I want to have those nice memories with people. I don't want it to be all about the followers and everything. So I think you made a very, very good point. Even at the end of the day, it isn't. I hope that every photographer listening out there Stop focusing on followers and numbers, and you're missing out on so many amazing, nice people. It's just clouded by this like air of popularity that is not, it's not even that great anyways. It just sounds, I don't know, doesn't even sound fun. Doesn't even sound fun.
Your work is worth more than the likes and the follows.
And you are worth way more than that, Kiana. You are not, you know, don't think, oh, because they didn't work with me that I'm not good enough. Do not think that for a moment, because that's somebody's bad judgment that made that decision not to work with you. And honestly, they really missed out, because you're an amazing person and you're so beautiful, you're so smart. Like, look, you're so like articulate. Honestly, anybody would have been like honored to shoot with you, or any of your friends. I saw all you guys were looking gorgeous. I mean, I hated watching your vlogs because you guys were all like bothered and crying, and it just broke my heart. And I'm like, I wish I were there. I wish I were there.
Also, the trip before, it was kind of similar, but it wasn't as bad, because there was one photographer. Her name is Deanie Chin. You should check her out. She's one of the photographers who loves you. But she made sure, and she was also a woman of color, and so I think that has something to do with it.
So she knew.
Made sure everyone who wasn't photographed, like, oh, I'm going to take pictures of you. And they were amazing pictures. And so, yeah, I think that definitely helped with the first experience. But when I did not have anything of this sort on the second experience, I was like, okay, this is really bad.
I totally agree. And I think we need more female photographers and female photographers of all backgrounds, races, to be on these trips and to be shooting all over, because, you know, sometimes, and I've worked in the industry for a while now, and I'll walk in, I'm usually the only female with a camera in her hands, and it's a lot of men still. So yeah, we absolutely need more of that.
And you know, it's important to know also that the way that you approach a photo shoot can also, like, what's the point I'm trying to make is the way that you approach a photo shoot with two different people. You should be putting in the same energy for both shoots. People will feel that energy and know if you just don't want to be there or don't care to shoot with them. You know what I mean? So give 100% to each person, because they show up, and it's just like showing that person some respect, I think. Right, Flannery? Well, you know what I'm trying to say, basically, right? It's like, you know, the vibe of when somebody is just shooting with you just to like get it over with, and then when they're really excited to work with you.
Yes. Yeah.
How can I, you say it, you're eloquent, and you
Oh, you said it perfectly. You said it great. I think people sometimes have off days, and as a professional, you have to rise above that. But there's no circumstance in which you should be treating your clients differently, because we're all humans, and that's all it is.
Okay, is there anything that you want to say? Like, the microphone is, what did they say? The floor is yours.
I just want to tell brands to do your research on your audience, and your audience is probably very diverse, especially if it has to do with fashion, beauty. Just, even if your audience isn't diverse, it's always a good idea to have inclusion in your brand. Like, it's never ever a bad thing to have representation. And for the girls out there who maybe feel like less than because they don't have as many followers or they don't look a certain way, that does not determine your value. Your value is in the fact that you are a living, breathing human. Like, you're here and you don't need anything else to, you know, determine your worth. Like, that's it. You're already worthy and you're already valuable.
Is there anything that you want to say to photographers out there who maybe look at followers a little bit too closely?
I would say let your work and your values do the talking. You do not need to be shooting the top girls. You do not need to be shooting the girls that look a certain way. You shoot who you want. You do your own thing, and I guarantee you followers will come.
So wise. Literally, like, who are you? Oh my God. What have you been up to recently? Are you still uploading on your YouTube? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I've been uploading a lot more in quarantine. Self-quarantine. We're not like on lockdown here. But other than that, I learned a song on the piano. Just like really random things. I'm reading this book about attachment styles. Just a lot of, I'm kind of all over the place right now, honestly.
I know you shot here and there, but do you see yourself pursuing modeling any more seriously?
I would definitely love to get better at modeling, but I feel like acting will always be the main focus.
I think that's amazing. I think you'd be a great model if you even wanted to do it on the side, and you can practice with me as much as you want.
Thank you.
So Kiana, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us today. And just go ahead and you can let us know again where people can find you online and any last things you want to say.
You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter at Kianna Naomi, and I am also newly on TikTok as Kiana the Kiwi.
Amazing. I'm going to follow you right now.
Thank you. I will follow you back.
So thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in. You can follow us on YouTube and Instagram at Light Muse Podcast, and you can check out our website at lightmusepodcast.com. And until then, we will see you all next time.